しかし、その時祝福の光が。
Hello everyone and welcome to Hats Off. I'm your host and third-party software, D'Angelo Edwards. Let's talk about comics for a bit, shall we? If some of you guys don't already know this by now, while most people would think that my favorite medium is animation, those people will be wrong, and they should stop trying to guess stuff about me. You don't know me. But while animation is amazing and wonderful, and I care so much about it, my main love will always lie in comics and manga. I think that the main appeal to me comes from the fact that anyone can make a comic. If you have a pen and some paper, you can create a comic. Anytime and anywhere. You don't need a team or money or have to go through companies and shareholders. As long as you're willing to put in the effort, you can create a story on your own terms. And there's something freeing about that. And while back in the day, being into comics used to be a one-way ticket to Swirly City, nowadays, media based on comic books, they've kind of dominated the market, bringing in billions of dollars for tons of people. Well, not tons, it's mostly Disney.
Put on the ears, boy.
But it's not just the movies that get made. Cartoons have always played a big part in comic books. And in today's age, it's no different. But today, we're not talking about your run-of-the-mill Marvel or DC show. Nope. Today, I have the pleasure of taking my hat off to the brand new premiere of Invincible is a brand new cartoon based off of the Image comic of the same name, which was created by Robert Kirkman, best known for his work creating Walking Dead, and the artist Cory Walker, who also serves as the lead character designer for the show, so you know all this stuff is authentic. I've always had a fondness for Image Comics, a company that was started by a group of artists that just got sick of taking Marvel's crap, being underpaid and not having rights to their work. That's right, Marvel isn't free of sin. You can stan Loki and look at Cap's butt all you want, but they aren't perfect either. But Image Comics is cool, publishing stuff like the previously mentioned Walking Dead, Spawn, Savage Dragon, and one of my personal favorites, The Max, which has a super underrated show. Give it a watch if you have the chance, you won't regret it. And best of all the creators for Image keep rights to their work. But today, the show we're focusing on is Invincible, which has just premiered with its first 3 episodes on Amazon. Now, I've always been aware of Invincible, and I've heard good things, but I just never got around to picking it up. So when I heard that this show was premiering, I was really excited. It's not that often that we get Western action animation focused on adults anymore, and I've kind of been burned by some of the latest ones, but we can talk about that another time. For now, let's talk Invincible. Invincible takes place in a world where superheroes, supervillains, aliens, robots, demon detectives, fish people, successful marriages, and other fictional things exist. Here, we focus on Mark Grayson, your normal everyday kid. He gets bullied at school, loves comics, works at the local burger joint, and his father also just happens to be the most powerful man on Earth. Jeff Bezos, Omni Man, an alien sent from a planet of super people to help protect Earth. Now, with Mark being half alien, Viltrumite to be precise, he one day discovers that he has powers just like his dad. And from that point on, he stumbles his way down the path of becoming a true hero. Now, I'm gonna be frank with you guys. I love this show. This is the kind of show that I would watch late at night on stuff like Toonami or something. Like, it feels like a TV show. I almost wanted commercials to play in between. The characters, animation, and story are familiar, yet different enough that you feel at home, but you don't know what will happen next, like your wife just poisoned your drink and you don't know it yet. It's a fun ride. And the main person at the apex of it is Mark. Mark is such a genuine character. Like, he feels like a real kid you would hang out with in high school. He's geeky, but that's not his whole life. He shows responsibility by holding down a job to support his hobbies, but he isn't perfect and gets into a lot of trouble as well. A lot of that trouble caused by his new powers. And when he gets those powers, he's not immediately good at it. Heck, he's still working out some kinks by the time we get to the end of episode 3. But you see him get better, and he does, and I like seeing it, because I like him. Steven Yeun does a great job bringing this guy to life, and it's honestly my favorite voice role of his to date. Sorry, Keith fans. But Yeun does a great job bringing out the fun, frustration, and fear that comes from a kid experiencing a big change. And I can't think of a bigger change than becoming a superhero. And speaking of superheroes, Mark has got some big shoes to fill, considering that his dad is the greatest hero of all time, Omni Man, who feels like a character ripped straight out of a vintage comic book. Loving to his family, but merciless to his enemies. Omni Man is a great character to watch. The time he spends on training with Mark is great, and you see him guiding him through the challenge of being a hero. You really feel their connection as he teaches him how to fly, and they even play a friendly game of around the world catch, which is honestly one of my favorite scenes so far. It's also great seeing him interact with Debbie, his wife and Mark's mom, who is a great character herself, strict with both of them, but also being one of their biggest sources of support. She's also got some sweet moments with her son, it's adorable. But besides Omni-Man's loving side, you also get a sense of his more harsh side, when he pushes Mark a bit too hard during training, a side that you see more of after an incident leaves several people dead and Omni-Man injured, forcing Mark to step up to the plate a bit more, where he realizes that the world of heroes is a lot more real than his comic books. And you really feel it when he fails to save lives, messes up, and wants to quit. But you're rooting for him to go on, and every time, he does. Besides the main family, you also get Mark's best friend, who is one of my favorite side characters so far. Amber, Mark's love interest, and a ton of other superheroes and villains that Mark both looks up to and even works with. And to illustrate this awesome world of heroes and monsters, we have some stellar animation on display, done by Wind Sun Sky Entertainment. And it's crazy to think animation is this good, because this is one of their first really big projects. The impacts are strong and snappy, and the fight scenes remind me of stuff from like the DCAU and Ben 10. It's really fun seeing all the different types of powers on display, and this is a show that really doesn't stray from the violence. You will see blood, and you will see a lot of it, and it'll be awesome. It doesn't feel like a lot of other Western animated shows that kind of wear their anime influence on their sleeves, which isn't a bad thing at all. It's just that this feels distinctly like Western animation, and I miss shows like that. I also really like the character designs, which are simple but sleek. The colors on the characters are well defined, and even if you blur them, you can still tell who's talking. I especially like Invincible's design, and how his head makes the dot on the eye of his costume. It's really clever. I'm into things like that. Things aren't perfect though. There's a lot of noticeable CGI, and it's not the best. Though they only rarely use it for characters, once being during an alien invasion, and one shot of Omni Man. But I get it, budgets exist and animation is hard, so I'm not too bothered. Another thing is that the backgrounds feel kinda generic at times. Like, they're the first things I would find if I was googling city background. But they aren't terrible. I just wish the show went for more of an iconic look. Though, it does help the characters stand out more, and there are a few nice looking background shots here and there. Also, there's this one weird animation error on one of the heroes, Adam Eve. The logo on their costume is like the female symbol with the circle crossed out. And at first, I didn't get it. Like, was it a message? Like an empowerment thing? Then I realized during one of the flight scenes that it's supposed to be the circular rings around an atom. Hence, Adam Eve. But in like every other shot, it's just an X. Like, what's up with that? 6 out of 10. IGN was right. But really, the show is great. It takes the standard origin story and shakes it up by also making it the story of a son trying to live up to his dad, while also grounding the fantasy elements in a more gritty reality, without making it too bleak. But with this being a show based on a comic, I wanted to see if it was faithful to the source material, so I read up a bit on it to see how they differed, and we'll go over that right after this break. Alright guys, so me being my ever curious self, I wanted to check out the source material for the show. So I read up until where the show is in episode 3, which is all of volume 1 and the first few issues of volume 2. And while the bones of everything in the show is there, it's presented a lot more different, with a few changes here and there. Of course you have your usual changes, gender swaps and race swaps among the heroes and the side characters. Kinda weird that they made the character Darkwing the black one, but I'm not saying anything. But the order of events is told in a completely different way, and sometimes with different characters altogether. Like, Omni Man and Mark stick together a lot longer than in the show, and they even take on the aliens that invade Earth together, instead of Mark teaming up with the Teen Team, a group that he meets earlier in the show during the alien fight, but in the comic, he meets them while fighting a robber. Also, the way he figures out his name is by talking to his principal in the comic, instead of his dad in the show, which I'm glad they changed because it's really a nice scene. And you don't really get a sense of the darker undertones of the series until a bit later. They also introduce a whole different villain early on that I won't spoil, because he might come up later in the show. But while these changes might confuse a few of the comic's original fans, I think that they work out rather well in terms of the show. The comic felt a little fast-paced in the original, with him advancing a bit faster and his failure not really setting in for me, while I feel that the show is paced perfectly. Like, I'm starting to think that 45 minutes might be the golden standard for action shows now. That way you don't have the problem of trying to cram both the story and the action into it, and you can let things breathe. Like, I really mean it when I say this show is perfectly paced. I would hate it if they dropped the whole season at once. Binge culture really did ruin some people. This show really feels like the old days of TV, where you will be watching a really good show that maybe your mom didn't want you to watch. But Invincible is a fun, gory, and sometimes kinda sweet ride that I'll gladly be checking into every week. And considering it's Image Comics, and Invincible has had crossovers with both Savage Dragon and Spawn, if we get cameos, or better yet, spin-offs, I can't see this as anything else but an absolute win. And while the show might not be invincible against a few criticisms, it's definitely got what it takes to fly high. Now, do me a favor guys, and go to Man of 1,000 Thoughts channel, and comment D'Angelo1 under any video. I think it'll make him very happy, but hey, that's just a thought.